we're just realizing that these drugs can actually make people worse. It's been in the drug labels the whole time.
Well, I know from firsthand experience, so I knew nothing about this. I don't take any of that crap. I've always hated shrinks my whole life. Never been. But no one I know who's been to one has gotten better, so that's why I don't like them. But anyway, these mass shootings and the calls for gun control and to take my shotguns away and all this stuff got me involved in like what is causing all these shootings, because there are a lot of shootings, right? And in every case you look at, the person's like just full of psychiatric meds. And so I brought this up a couple of times in public, and whoa, you get attacked for even raising the question, like, is there a connection between SSRIs and mass shootings? Like, why is that a crazy question?
Even the question, and people can't.
What is that?
It's you would think that people would, of course, want to have that question asked and answered. And if they had true faith in their products, they would be like, oh, let's look at it. Let's be transparent about this. Let's have open access to the data. Let's do whatever we need to do to show you all that our products don't cause violence. But of course, it's the opposite. I know a friend of mine who's a professor at one point tried to FOIA the medical records of various mass shooters and couldn't get access. I mean, You're
not allowed to know.
Yeah, and I can't remember when Columbine, was it like 98 or
it was 97, I think.
Something, and as you said, the 90s were, so Prozac came to market in the late 80s. The 90s were declared the decade of the brain by our US government, and the 90s began basically the ubiquitization of psychiatric drugs, the normalization of them, the kind of infusion of them into every facet of our lives. And this, of course, was fueled by industry funding. So all the kind of anti-stigma, mental health awareness campaigns that Mental Health Awareness Month. We're in May. Actually, Tucker, we're in May. May is Mental Health Awareness Month. These are all industry-funded efforts to basically infuse the cultural discourse around emotional pain with this message with this actually very just, righteous message that you should never feel alone with your suffering. You should feel like you can talk about your troubles. That is a really important message.
Amen.
But that has been exploited by powerful corporations to basically now mean there's no shame in getting mental health treatment. And so they've taken this important message and perverted it to basically link anyone who is calling into question psychiatric drugs with someone who doesn't care about suffering. I mean, it's amazing the number of times that I share my story, and I'm literally just talking about my story. I'm not saying anything about anyone else. The story of how I eventually left this all behind. People hear that as me denying the reality of suffering. This woman doesn't think people are struggling out there. I'm like, where did I ever say that? It's actually the opposite. I think first of all, I struggle a lot in my life. I'm by no means a happy, put together, mentally healthy person all the time. But how are you conflating me questioning the psychiatric drug paradigm with me questioning the reality of people suffering? Like, if you think about it, it's just these industries have been so effective in conflating care with treatment. So if you question treatment, people assume you're questioning the need that people have for help. It's like, there are other ways to get help, people.
So no matter how you feel about Donald Trump, it's hard to deny that his second term has been a whirlwind. It's amazing how fast this administration is advancing its agenda, deporting illegal aliens, slashing government waste, an entirely new trade strategy. No one has ever seen anything like it. They are not messing around. Now, many people are thrilled by this fast start, but it's going to take a lot more than this to achieve the ultimate goal. And that's why our friends at the Heritage Foundation are mobilizing supporters, patriots across the country, to support this administration and the broader conservative movement, and they need your help to do that. You can go to heritage.org/survey to complete their national survey on Donald Trump's second term agenda. What you tell them will help their team work with the White House to make the president's campaign promises a reality. I used to work at Heritage 35 years ago. Gave me my first job. I've always been grateful for that. Heritage is not like every other think tank in D.C., almost all of which are part of the problem. Heritage is fighting the problem. I can say that. Go to heritage.org/survey to help them fill out the survey. Heritage.org/survey. Does anyone doubt, I mean, just being honest, that if you get rid of all drugs, legal and illegal, licit and illicit, that the mental health crisis would basically disappear?
I mean, I'm sure it's. If
people stayed sober, I haven't had any serious mental health problems since I got sober 23 years ago. I can just speak for myself. Like, that's just what I know. And I know a lot of people in that exact position. Once you just stop addling yourself with crap, you return to equilibrium. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I think the way I would think about it for myself, at least, is that when I let go of this medicalized way of understanding myself, translating all my struggles into symptoms to take to a doctor, et cetera, et cetera. And when I came off the drugs, and when I also then began to educate myself about the broader issues with just our whole medical industry and how we compartmentalize the body in all these problematic ways. And so I just kind of reconceptualized how I think about well-being and the things I put in my body or don't put in my body. I to your point, I definitely have found my way to a kind of equilibrium that equips me to face life's challenges, which are inevitable. I mean, I think it's a part of the human condition to suffer, to struggle, to have dark nights of the soul. And I think historically, these were episodic experiences that would, something hard happened in your life, or even something not visible, but you just are in a tough chapter. You just find your way through it. Maybe it takes a week, maybe it takes a month, maybe it takes a year, but you move through it. I think that used to be, prior to the rise of this medicalized mental health industry, that used to be the baseline operating assumption. And then since the rise of psychiatric drugs and since the rise of the chemical imbalance story and this incurable brain disease story, we've just forgotten that the struggles that emerge in life are responses to life and not permanent. If you orient yourself to them in that way and actually believe and tell yourself, this is a hard chapter that I'm in, but it's a chapter. It's not my whole story. And that's what I was taught by psychiatry, is that my whole story, the rest of the story of my life, is that I'm just so-called mentally ill, needing treatment. And that's all I have.
They do that with alcohol too. I can speak from personal experience. Well, you're not, I will always be an alcoholic. No, I'm not an alcoholic. I drank too much. Alcoholic, I guess, but I don't drink anymore. So it's not the center of my life anymore.
That's so, I think
that's a fair, look, I'm not judging anybody. I love AA. I don't go, but I love it. I don't want to be judgmental, but telling people they're weak and pathetic and will always be dependent on you, it's it's a red flag for me. I'm
so with you. I in my book, I talk about the chapter in my life when I quit drinking, which I did eventually do, because drinking 1 to 2 bottles of wine a night before you take your 5 med regimen, including horse tranquilizer doses of Klonopin, is not a recipe for functioning. And so I did eventually decide to quit drinking and was really active in the 12-step world for a few years. And I hold a soft spot for it in my heart. But I came to the same conclusion for myself is, I had spent the most formative years of my life letting psychiatry define who I was. And then I moved into the 12-step world and I took on a new label, alcoholic, and I began to defer my authority to, a higher power. And I do believe in God, and I am connected to this kind of broader oneness of life around me. But I eventually realized that I have to stop turning it over. I have to stop seeking outside guidance, authority, expertise, answers, and I need to start looking within myself and actually take responsibility for my life and my decisions and my relationships. And I realized, like, I have to stop labeling myself as anything, really, and kind of buying into any ideology of any kind that tells me I have a problem it has the solution for. Now I'm like, you know, even in the wellness alternative health world, there are a lot of problems that you get sold into thinking you have that their products can help you solve. And I'm at the point where I'm like, I don't want to look out there anymore for answers to to anything internal to me. That's just me.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. We hope you'll subscribe to it. And by the way, you can hit the little bell on there and get notifications every time we produce a video. We hope you'll do that also.